Hi, I'm Margaret Chan and welcome to Type 2 Makeover, where I will be sharing my patient proactive approach to transforming type 2 diabetes. I have the condition and I continue to live with freedom and vitality as I move towards reversing it. So in this series I'll be sharing information, research, resources and alternative health and well-being strategies that you may want to use in your life in order to help you to continue to thrive. So the series will be focused on type 2 diabetes. However, in this episode, I'll be touching on the 6 different types of diabetes that currently exist. That's right, there are 6 of them, which may be a surprise to you. And the context to all of this is the World Health Organization. So last month, in April 2016, they published their report, the Global Report on Diabetes. And in it, they stated that there are 422 million people right across the world who are living with diabetes. The vast majority have type 2 diabetes, so that's about 90%. And so that's a lot of people who have this condition, and the Director General, who is Dr. Margaret Chan, she's calling on stronger resources and responses from governments and medics, as well as non-profits, the pharmaceutical companies, as well as food producers and manufacturers, as well as us as patients. And this really speaks to me because I am a very proactive patient and I believe in and I practice leading my healthcare from the front in partnership with my doctor. So if there's anything that you take away from whatever I mention here is get into a relationship with your doctor. Work with your doctor as you begin to educate yourself about your condition. Show your doctor that you're somebody who takes their health very, very seriously and you want to participate in your health and well-being. So that gives you some context in terms of where the World Health Organization is. There's grave concerns because there's this recognition that the conventional way of dealing with the condition is to manage it. And that managing tends to be around pharmaceutical drugs. However, there are other ways of managing it, and I like the fact that she spoke about this multi-disciplinary approach, which suggests that there isn't just one way of treating or dealing with diabetes, and that appeals to me strongly given that I'm coming to it from this very much the alternative epigenetic approach to dealing with my healthcare. So, what are these 6 areas of diabetes? So, first of all, there's type 1 diabetes. And type 1 is where the pancreas is unable to produce any insulin. And as a result of this, the blood glucose continues to rise in the body, and the only way to bring it under control is to inject yourself with insulin. Now, type 1 tends to be associated with children and young people, which is slightly misleading because adults can also get type 1 diabetes. Moving on to type 1.5, which is also known as latent autoimmune diabetes in adults. And here, this is where the pancreas is attacked by antibodies, and one of them could be GAD65, which is GAD65. Now, in order to determine whether you have type 1.5 as opposed to type 1 or type 2, is that you need to have a blood test called a C-peptide test. And what this measures is the actual level of insulin that your body is able to produce. And so once this has been identified, your doctor can then advise you as to the right course of action, because what can happen is people who really are 1.5 are being treated as if they're type 1 or type 2. Now, the types of people that tend to have type 1.5 are people who have always maintained a normal body weight or have been very slim, or they have a family history of autoimmune conditions. So if I take myself, for example, I've never been overweight, I've always maintained a trim body shape, but I was diagnosed with type 2 and I don't have type 1.5. So if you think you could be somebody who has diabetes, ask your doctor to have a C-peptide test. Moving on to type 2 diabetes, where the vast majority of us live in this world of diabetes. As I mentioned, 90% of patients with diabetes have type 2. Now here, there's a breakdown in communication between the pancreas, insulin, and the cells. So here, the pancreas is able to generate and create insulin. However, insulin, which is a hormone, is unable to help the sugar move into the cells. So insulin acts like a key that unlocks the cell doors that allows the blood sugars to come into the cells, that enables us to generate energy. However, there's a breakdown in communication, and hence the blood sugars continue to rise, and as a result of this causes insulin resistance. So type 2 diabetes is a condition that its root cause is insulin resistance. Now, the focus around the treatment of type 2 diabetes tends to be about diabetes being associated with blood sugars, and there is an association. But blood sugars and the increase or the rise in blood sugars is a symptom of insulin resistance. It's not the cause, it's the symptom. And so therefore, if the treatment is around bringing down the blood sugars, it doesn't treat the root cause, which is insulin resistance. Moving on to type 3 diabetes. Now, back in 2008, there's a doctor, Dr. Suzanne de la Monte, who led a research team at the Brown Medical School, and what they found is that the pancreas isn't the only organ that produces insulin. They found that brain cells also, and the brain can produce insulin. Now, where there's insulin resistance found in brain cells, this then triggers Alzheimer's disease. And so she published this report in 2008 in the Journal of Diabetes, Science and Technology. So feel free, go and check it out. There's this new form of diabetes whereby it attacks the brain, insulin resistance builds up, and Alzheimer's disease occurs. Then there's another form of diabetes called MUDI, and this is maturity onset diabetes in the young, and it tends to affect children and young people under the age of 25. And here, this has a tighter association with genetics because it's where there's a change of the gene expression in one gene. And so there could be a family history around this, and it only affects 5% of the population right across the world that has diabetes. So it's the rarest form of diabetes, and it has the closest association with genetics. And then lastly, there's gestational diabetes, and this occurs when women are pregnant. And what happens here is that insulin resistance builds up as a result of changes in hormone during the pregnancy process. So that gives you the overview and indication of the 6 types of diabetes that exist. Now, beyond the types of symptoms that I've indicated, there are other symptoms that you need to be looking out for if you're concerned that you or a family member or a friend may have diabetes. So if you're somebody, for example, that is excessively thirsty and running to the toilet all the time, that could be a sign. Also, if you are experiencing blurred vision in a way that you hadn't experienced before, or you're getting these subtle fluctuations in your chest area or your breast. So if I take myself, for example, that I'm really short-sighted, I started to notice that my vision was becoming slightly blurred in a way that I hadn't noticed it before. And I've got a really good relationship with my body. I've never been overweight, I've never been obese, I've always been quite trim and very athletic. In fact, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes shortly after running a marathon. So I'm somebody who has always been very fit and healthy and led what I felt was a really healthy lifestyle. And yet I was beginning to experience these subtle symptoms, and hence I took myself to the doctors and was diagnosed with type 2. So I'm somebody who didn't fit the profile which is usually associated with people with type 2 diabetes, in that there's this general idea that people who have type 2 diabetes are overweight or obese, or they don't exercise and they're eating junk food, and that may not be you, because that certainly isn't me and wasn't me. So if you've got any concerns, go to your doctor, get into conversation with your doctor, do your research, take that information to your doctor. You know, they're going to love it because they're going to see that you're somebody who really cares about who they are. Yes, you have this condition with regards to type 2. It's not a death sentence. It's one where you're able to thrive and live with vitality and move towards reversing it. And that's the journey I'm definitely on. So I want you to remain well. I want you to use your wisdom and get into dialogue and partnership with your doctor. So that's it for this episode. And the question of the day is, did you learn anything from what I've shared in this episode? And if you did, put it in the comment box below. I love to connect and engage with you, and I will see you again on the next episode.